Well, it looks like the Foreverwinter devs put out another set of Q&A responses from their Discord server. And like clockwork, I'm here to let you know all about it. I'm Johnny Lockjaw, and let's talk about it. First, let's go over the gameplay stuff. Somebody wanted to know whether or not we would actually be allowed to prestige past level 25. And you're not going to believe this, it's probably going to be coming soon, if not in the next update. Jeff mentions that Gunhead has a lot of skills, more than any of the other characters right now, plus with the planned increases and upgrades to what it is that we're going to get in terms of the character skills that we already have, probably going to need a little more juice in that regard, so we'll definitely get something. After that, somebody asked whether or not the robots can use toolkits to heal. Probably going to be a monkey's paw situation if this gets implemented. Remember, FDS really likes to implement changes that affect both the players and the AI, so, you know, if Gunhead, the mech, or I guess the little tiny robot, but relative to the other robots, if Gunhead gets the ability to heal using toolkits or any other methods, I bet you everything that I own, that any of the other robots or mechs are going to be able to do that as well. Be careful what you wish for. After that, somebody was more alluding to the fact that they really like the pneumatic jump and wanted to know whether or not more platforming elements will be introduced at some point. And actually, yes, which surprises me because that isn't something that I think that the devs would have gone towards regardless. But it's interesting to think that that's the case, and possible hint towards a new map that has some loot in different areas that you wouldn't be able to access unless you have the pneumatic jump. So it's something to keep in mind. It'll be interesting to see. Plus, they're actually going through with some other people that they have apparently and going through some of the maps and seeing where it is that they can actually, or at least should be able to put things with the pneumatic jump in mind, so that there's actually a reason to bring that on number one, and to increase explorability of the maps and all that kind of stuff. So it would be kind of neat. That wraps up the gameplay stuff, so let's move on to some lore stuff. Actually, only one lore question this go around, and this might be a stretch of a lore question anyway. Somebody was wondering if we were going to end up getting access to hunting trophies. Like, you take down a big enemy and you get a piece of it as a cosmetic. They're already looking to implement this, which is actually super cool. They're also talking about the possibility of having some like display trophies as well for the innards, so there's something to keep in mind there. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. And that actually does it for what I have for what I consider lore questions this go around, so let's move on to the technical stuff. Somebody asked, will Exos be able to kill stalkers like they see in the trailers, as well as will the Exo movement animations eventually change? And the answer is probably yes. Obviously, there's some working limitations that they have in terms of the team size for the animation stuff. They are currently working on interactions between the larger units, which is really neat. The team is, again, very small, at least compared to most traditional development houses, obviously. So, you know, keep that in mind in terms of asking them to do too many things in too many different directions. And animation's hard, and they have a small animation team, so, you know, keep that in mind as well. Somebody asked after that whether or not we will get procedurally generated maps. Miles basically says no, because he doesn't like procedural generation in terms of like entire map designs. They are looking to implement different map modifiers that have the same similar effect. Think of like the nighttime variants or the horror variants for maps that already exist now. And they are thinking about maybe implementing something similar to what it is that they're describing for their lore-based like massive tunnel systems that exist under the large cities. You know, that's just an open-ended idea that they were discussing, but it's not something to like hold on to as, I think, a for sure thing. It is interesting to think about at the very least. And, you know, to be fair, Jeff also sort of chimed in and was like, they don't really want maps that just feel like it's the same thing, but you turn left instead of right in this specific spot. So, you know, it's something to keep in mind. Procedural generation works in different kinds of games. I don't think for the Foreverwinter it would work really well, especially also considering that sometimes their AI already has a problem with the maps that they have that are sort of already ingrained into the game itself. Doesn't need to have variables to add on to that as well, I don't think right now. After that, somebody asked how much they were prioritizing optimization for older systems and PCs. Truth be told, they have already been doing a lot of really good work in this regard, at least in terms of my system. It runs way better. Now again, I have a decent PC, and this was talking about older hardware, so keep that in mind, obviously, that it's going to be a little bit different, but they have also been working extensively on older end systems, or at least turning to making more optimized so that people can actually play it, and they obviously want the most people to play it, and obviously they're doing their best to make what was initially a very poorly optimized game into a more optimized game when it becomes more polished and they do a lot lot more work on it. It is obviously tough that some people can't play it because it takes a lot of hardware requirement right now. They are working on it. They have a bunch of different stuff. They have said specifically that if you have lower end hardware, to send them what it is that you're running, and they will do their best to try to test it to make it more optimized specifically with those parts in mind. So if you have a problem running it now, I would do that. They probably have an email somewhere. I have no idea. And that does it for the technical stuff. So let's move on to the planned content. A fun thing, somebody asked whether we were going to get more multi-map quests. And on top of that, they asked, is the secret lockbox and Scorched Enclave actually locatable? Is it actually on the map? So really quick, yes, that is available. You can find that. It is on the map. It's just not in the same spot every time, and it has a bunch of different variables as to where it would actually spawn. So, keep that in mind. And multi-map quests are going to be introduced at some point. Going to be a little more robust than go to this map, kill this many enemies, and then go to this map and kill this many enemies. They want it to be a little more interesting than that. So there's going to be some synergy in terms of what it is that you're doing that causes different variables to occur that may or may not have actually happened without that. So it's interesting to think and obviously think about what it is that they were going to be planning. I have no idea. I don't work there again. After that, somebody asked whether or not there will be in-game battlefield events that exist that are more ingrained to actual player participation as opposed to just sort of spectacles and spectators that you would just watch. And apparently yes. And apparently yes, which was surprising to me. There will be different in-game events that occur that will cause different things to happen. I'm not sure when that'll be implemented or if it's already implemented and I just haven't, or we just, I guess, as a community hasn't figured out that that's the case. There was a lot of brainstorming on minor events that could happen, and there's some stuff that may or may not be coming in the next update. Again, I'm not 100%, but, keep in mind, again, early access will early access. It's something to play around with and see if it'll be able to, work in an effective level without killing whatever the game already has in it. Something to keep in mind. After that, somebody asked whether more maps are going to be planned other than what's shown on the region screen currently. And yes, again, early access is going to early access, but they're sort of limited in scope in terms of their team size and obviously what it is that they already have. They do want to expand on what's currently there already. They do want to look into how they can expand that and do more. I think they've talked about maybe going to a different continent at some point. I'm not 100% on that anymore or what it is that their actual vision is, but we'll see. Obviously, I think what it is that's there is sort of what's planned for the early access period, perhaps. We'll see what's going on with all that, but they are going to add more than what's already there. After that, somebody wanted to know what endgame was going to look like. Was it going to be kind of like a roguelite, or was it going to be more open-ended to player motivation? And Miles always tries to lean towards player motivation because that's why we play video games. There is an endgame that's planned, and he won't go into what it is that it's going to be. That is probably one spoiler that he won't tell. He did also mention that it'll probably be implemented in about 6 months. I don't really know how accurate that'll be. That does it for planned content, so let's go over the miscellaneous stuff. Somebody wanted to know whether or not we were going to get more burst transmissions. For those of you who don't know, those are the little videos that they put out from time to time that have major announcements or that are just really cool to see. And they do want to make more. Obviously, their animation team is a little bit tied down in terms of what it is that they can make. They have a small team, again, that is very much being dragged around to a bunch of different things. The same animation team that works on the actual animations is the one that does the burst transmissions. So keep that in mind. They want to put out more. They just are kind of limited in terms of their manpower. After that, somebody wanted to know whether they were going to allow us to, 3D print the models because people want them. Worth mentioning that they already want to sell figurines, and they are already working with big model kit makers from Japan, so stay tuned on that. The whole 3D printing thing is a weird conversation. They want people to have these things. They just want whatever is out there to be the highest quality possible. They do want to sell these things. That's probably going to be a part of their monetization scheme, as it were. But there was no blanket killing of 3D printing. So, if I suppose it's still on the table currently, but they don't have anything to sell right now on that front. So maybe that'll change. I don't know. Somebody after that asked whether or not we were going to finally get that gameplay death montage. For those of you who don't know, the players were requested to put forth their best or funniest gameplay death clips, basically. And this question is in line with that. They want to know when that will actually be available or be made available. I'm sure that that's something that they're working on. And same as before, they are working on it. They have a small team doing all the same animation stuff. They're the ones who are editing and doing all that stuff, but they are working on it. They want to put it out. They want to make sure that it's actually good etc., etc. After that, the final question is whether or not we will be allowed to do like Tarkov-style naked runs. Obviously, right now you have to go into a raid with 2 guns in your hands, basically. Miles notes that it is a cool idea. It's just worth noting that the build that they have isn't actually designed for it. They don't have the ability for you to not have stuff in your hands. He also mentions that there's a specific aesthetic value that they have to it, where they want to make sure kind of that the game stays to a relative degree of normalcy for what it is that they have. And having one guy run around with, no weapons in their hands and the atmosphere that they have doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So, it's worth keeping that in mind. Probably sounds like they want to maybe do something similar once they have the melee weapons system figured out to a better degree, but no guarantees that that'll be a thing. And that actually wraps it up for today's video. It's very interesting. I'm really excited to see what it is that comes out. It sounds like we're going to get a new update here soon. In fact, I know that there's going to be a new update here soon. Some fun developments on that front, but hopefully things go well on that front. We should get more interesting water feedback. I do believe there's probably going to be more maps or a new map coming out soon. There's a lot of good gameplay stuff. There's going to be a lot of good gunplay stuff. I'm really excited to see what's going on. That wraps it up for today's QA recap. If you've made it this far, do me a favor, like, comment, follow, and subscribe. I would genuinely appreciate it. As always, please don't die. I will see you in the next one.